So at some point in our lives, we experience pain, rejection, feelings of inadequacy or disconnection. And in our childlike brain, that disconnection, that rejection, we try to make sense of it. We come in so pure, and then we experience a wound, right? Something happens in our heart, and it takes a chunk away. And that wound, that mark that gets left, let's say this is a rejection mark or neglect. Our brain as a child begins to want to make sense of that. Why was I rejected? Why is this neglect happening? Maybe, maybe your father said something like, "Come on, pull it together, Susan." Or, "Jacob, nobody wants to hear you cry. Take that to your room." Right? We do this. And it can just be the slightest thing that leaves a mark, that leaves a nick. And something happens in that child's brain that goes, "Ooh, that was not okay." And it's a very short jump from "that was not okay" to "I am not okay." You're in school, and so maybe somebody says a fat joke, and your best friend is standing next to you and laughs at it. They didn't even have to say anything. It wasn't even directed at you. The smallest little thing, and a chunk gets taken away. Another chunk gets taken away. And that leaves a mark, right? There's a wound there that happens, and a belief begins to develop in your brain, a new belief about who you are, who you need to be in order to be okay, in order to be loved, accepted, worthy, because who you are now was not okay. And you begin to associate it. You look around, okay, what did I do? What did I say? As children, we are dependent on our caretakers, on our communities. And I would even say as adults, we are interdependent. We like to pretend we're so independent and take care of your own needs. And we talk about all this stuff, right? In our culture, being independent is supreme. But the thing is, it's not. We live in an interdependent world. We are not independent. We are dependent on one another. We require connection. We are wired for it. We are wired for connection, for love, for intimacy, for belonging. These are basic human needs. Now, there is something to be said for filling yourself up, for learning how to nurture yourself, to take care of yourself, right? There is something to be said for learning to be independent. You have to first be independent before you can be interdependent. But it is a step on the path. It is not the destination. That is not a place that you stay. It is a skill you develop to learn to take care of yourself, but it was never intended to be permanent. It was never intended to be permanent. In a time of need, when I'm feeling triggered, it is so important for me to know how to self-soothe. It is so important for me to know how to get the sleep that I need, how to take care of myself, how to have good friends and community, to know how to build myself up. All of that is important. But it does not negate my need for connection or support. Does this make sense? We are responsible for one another. In other words, we have the ability to respond. The ability to respond and to lift someone up. And I want to encourage us to do that. To stop just saying, figure it out on your own. Yes, we want to encourage people to have personal responsibility. But we also want to encourage community and connection. And so that's what this is all about, right? So as children, especially, we are dependent on our caretakers. We're dependent on our community. So when a wound happens, a survival mechanism is birthed. That survival mechanism is birthed in order to ensure connection, safety, security, love, or belonging. So that those things can be reestablished, right? That child's brain, it knows in a moment, I have to reestablish connection, belonging. I cannot be kicked out of this tribe. I cannot. I have to reestablish that connection. My life is dependent upon it. That is inside each and every one of our brains. And so when we see that person that is needy, emotionally needy, and they are turning into a hot mess, and they are triggered, and they are flailing for love, it comes from somewhere inside their brain, and shaming it and disconnecting from it is not going to help. We have to heal the belief. We have to find it and heal it so that they can step in to this new identity, so that they can restore their heart to wholeness. And this is not just for the people who are needy, right? I know that one well, but there's other ones. We do the same thing to the bully, and we shame the bully. And everyone knows it's not good to be a bully. And they get shamed. And what does shame do to that bully? Does that restore his heart? Hell no, it does not. Why is he being a bully? Why do people feel like they have to puff themselves up and put other people down? Because they don't believe they are enough. They don't believe that they've never received love, maybe, right? They have a belief that they're not going to get love, so I'm going to go get power instead. How are we going to stop this if we keep disconnecting, isolating them even further? And this is not to say, look, like I said, I've been through this recently where somebody isolated me because of behaviors that were showing up that were not pretty. I did not show up as my best self, right? I didn't. And I got morally righteous and on my high horse and blah, blah, blah. Well, you too, and so did you, and I would never behave like that. And I just started shaming this person who's beautiful and wonderful. And of course, they were going to reject my behavior. It's okay to say, I don't want to be around that. Now, there's multiple ways you can deal with that, but like, to come in and shame that person for that, what good is that going to do anything? And that was wrong of me. Right? And so I went from the needy person to the critical person. We're not just one. We have all of these mechanisms inside us to self-protect. If we can't establish connection, then we're going to establish power instead, right? Make ourselves feel better in some way. And we learn this as children. And these survival mechanisms, we adapt ourselves, right? I was rejected. A wound happened. A piece got taken away. And so, how am I going to deal with that? And so we take the form of a helper, an overachiever, a loser, a bully, a doormat. There's all these ways that we find to manipulate the world around us so that we can be okay. And as a child, that makes sense, because we don't have the emotional or spiritual maturity at that time to process rejection or neglect or abuse. We can't make sense of it. Our brains we are not spiritually and emotionally developed enough to be able to know what to do with that. And so we have to find a way to survive. So as a child, this makes sense. But as we get older and we are able to develop a new skill set, we don't need those protective mechanisms anymore. We don't need them. But we forget, right? That we can come back to this. That we can always come back to this. And we can always become whole again. We can do this ourselves, and we can help other people do this. And so we need to heal our identity wounds in order to release these personas, these masks with which we show up in the world. And these masks, these personas especially become strong when we are under stress, okay? It's the triggered self versus the highest self. It's the false identity versus your true identity. It's the Moana, movie that I talk about, and she comes to return the heart of Tahiti, and there's the fiery monster that's just, wah, right? That is our false identity. That is our persona, just freaking out because our heart has been stolen. Our heart has been wounded. We have forgotten who we really are. And so we are flailing for power, control, love, connection, belonging, anything, please, to make us feel like we're going to be okay. And Moana had the vision when she realized it's her. She just doesn't have her heart. And instead of running away, she turned and she had compassion. And she could see through the fiery monster to the heart of this goddess. And as she came and returned her heart, the monster subsided and she took her truest form. And this is the journey that each and every one of us have to do. But we have to remember first who we are. We have to find our heart, our true heart, and our true identity to be able to embody it. And we can help one another do this. And so I'm going to talk as we move forward about once you find out who this is, what this identity is, who this person is for you, who you really are, I want to encourage you to surround yourself with people who remind you of that, who build you up, who foster and nurture this truest identity. This highest self, so that we can begin to engage with each other at higher forms of connection and intimacy. When our true selves are engaging with our true selves, right? My highest version of myself and your highest version of yourself, that's when we can have the most amazing love and intimacy and belonging and creativity and interdependence. But when my fiery dragon is fighting with your fiery dragon, that's where relationships get broken. That's where communities get fallen apart, right? When my needy self is clashing with somebody else's walled off self, when my needy self is clashing with that super together person that's a perfectionist, that's like, don't get your emotions on me, right? Those are bad. When the bully is clashing with the doormat, the people pleaser, right? Our worst selves come out and in the world, and we're all just dragons fighting dragons. What would happen if we could start to heal the wounds and turn each and every person, starting with ourselves, into the highest versions of ourselves on a more consistent basis? This takes practice. This is not easy, but it can be done. This journey is what allows us to see each other's humanity more fully and from a place of compassion. This is where healing can happen and love can be fostered in the place of fear, rejection, disconnection, hierarchy, by the way, as well, and hate. This is where hierarchy comes from. I'm better than you. That persona's bad. This one's good. The overachiever is better than the bully. The perfectionist is better than the needy hot mess, right? The rich person is better than the poor person. The logical, emotionally stable, everything can have it all together, but on the inside, they're filled with judgment and criticism and self-righteousness. Guys, I have felt those things. I know what they feel like. Even recently, I have been in that place. I have embodied those. They feel horrible, my friends. They feel horrible. I don't want anyone to have to continue living there. Please, can we come back to here? They look good on the outside. You can look like you have it all together, but if you're carrying that around on the inside, it is a poison, my friends. It is a poison. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end this movie for right now, and then in the next one, I'm going to show you how these personas develop. See you in the next one.